Let me know if there's any issues with sound or connection or whatever it is. I am still on my parents' farm, so sometimes the Wi-Fi is a little bit up and down. But hopefully it'll do what we need today. Awesome. So I'd love to know, while we're just waiting a few minutes for anyone who still wants to join live, I'd love to know what your experience is with meditation. Like, are you a regular meditator? Are you someone that's never tried it? Are you someone that's like, no, I'm never going to meditate? Do you dabble with it sometimes and then it kind of fades away? Let me know what the kind of experience level, exposure level of meditation is for you guys. Just so I have some idea who I'm kind of chatting to. But today we'll be going over a few different aspects of meditation. So I'm hoping that'll be relevant to you regardless of what your kind of experience level is. So we're going to be discussing some of the myths around meditation. We're going to be going into some of the different types, because I mean, there's just so many different ways to meditate, and people say you should do it like this, and other people say you should do it like this, and whatever it is. So we're just going to go through a few of those types, and then using it as a tool for your health and recovery, and what might that look like. So if you're joining live, say hi, just pop into the comments and give a wave or say hi. And if you are watching this as a replay, just hashtag the word replay and say hi as well. I'd love to know who's watching and whether that's live or replay. And then also just feel free to, with all of these lives, you're welcome to pop in something in the comments, whether that's a question or a comment, or just something about your experience with something, or something that is resonating with you. It's really helpful for everyone watching, and also, yeah, just gets a sense of chatting about aspects that I may not have thought about talking about. All right. Okay, so as most of you know, I'm Sarah, health and recovery coach for women clinicians, and this is one of the topics that kind of falls under health and recovery, but as we'll see later, it can fall into so many different categories within that, and people use meditation for so many different reasons, and you can kind of adapt it to what helps for you. I'll also mention how it was helpful just in terms of like career for me. So, but also how that might fit into the career part as well, because that's also something that I help my clients with, the health aspect of it and the career side of things, because a lot of the people that I work with are chronically stressed and burnt out, and with that comes various health-related issues or struggles or aspects of your health that can help with burnout. And then also the career-related aspects of feeling burnt out and exhausted and wondering if this is what you should be doing, right? So we're going to get into the different aspects of what we're going to talk about today. As I said, if you're joining live, say hi, watching the replay, hashtag replay, and say hi as well. Okay, cool. So some of the myths that I hear quite commonly when people think about meditation is they'll say things like, I can't meditate because I can't sit still. I can't meditate because I can't silence my thoughts or like stop thinking. Or something like, I'm not a calm person, or yeah, I'm not someone who can just be kind of peaceful and calm all the time. Or someone will say something like, I'm not a spiritual person, or I don't believe in that. Or even maybe more extreme than that, for some people, it goes against their kind of spiritual beliefs, that because meditation is seen as a spiritual practice that is maybe not their spiritual practice, it's seen as something that is kind of going against that. So I think there's two aspects of these myths that we'll go into. And one is the myth about what meditation is for or what it's about. So for example, not thinking you can meditate because you can't sit still, right? So, meditation can come in many forms. It doesn't have to be sitting, it can be walking. Some people do dancing meditation. So you don't have to sit still in order to meditate, right? Silencing your thoughts, right? That's just not what we're trying to do in meditation. I think that's a common misconception, is like you're trying to not think. And of course, we can't do that, right? Like anyone who has spent any time meditating, you will know that feeling of like your thoughts just come and they just keep coming, and it's just like this never stops, right? And if you are thinking, oh, I need to silence that, or I need to stop that, that is impossible. Our thoughts just arise. So we're not trying to stop that process or silence your thoughts. Often the metaphor is used as like seeing your mind as like a sky, and the thoughts are clouds that are just appearing in the sky and then they're fading away, right? And we're not trying to resist that or like push them away or like, no, these clouds mustn't come here. So that's kind of the equivalent of thinking I mustn't think, right? So we're not trying to push them away or stop them, but we're also not trying to like zone in on one cloud and like follow that little thought or follow that story along. We're just letting that cloud kind of come up and pass away again. So it's not necessarily, or isn't about like silencing your thoughts or not thinking. It's not about being calm all the time or peaceful, or, there is no like emotional state that we always want to have. We're not trying to have this like stable line of emotional state, right? Whether that's happiness or calm or what else? Love or whatever it is. Feeling loving. We're not trying to just be at that state all the time, right? Our natural human experience is that emotions arise and then they go away. And when we're trying to just be present with whatever arises and goes away, we're not trying to produce a certain emotional state. The misconception about being spiritual, right? It can definitely be a spiritual practice, and we'll go into that a little bit later. Of like, it can be used as a tool for spiritual practice. And certain types of meditation can be associated with believing certain things. But meditation and mindfulness can be a tool regardless of spirituality. So it doesn't have to go against whatever your existing beliefs are. And it also doesn't have to be related to spiritual beliefs in any way. And then the second aspect of the myth, I think, is this idea that we need to be able to do something or be good at something before we do it, right? So, for example, if you feel like your brain is just always overwhelmed and you just get lost in your thoughts and you're distracted and all that kind of stuff, and you say that that's a reason to not meditate, right? Like you struggle to focus or, have that thoughts coming and going, but being kind of still within that, whatever it is. That is the skill that you're building with meditation, right? So you don't need to be able to do that before that. That's literally what it's about, practicing those skills, right? So it's like the example of saying, I don't want to do mobility work because I'm not very flexible, right? We hear that with like things like yoga or Pilates or things like that. People say, I'm not very flexible, so I can't do mobility work. And it's like, that is why you're doing mobility work, right? If we're just going to be doing the things that we just naturally do or are naturally good at, we're not going to build the skills that we actually need. So I'd love to know if one of these myths was something that you thought about meditation, whether that's previously and now you think differently about it, or something that maybe you've realized through kind of going through those myths and what you resonate with. And then talking about the different types. So there are so many different types. There are things like, for example, like I was mentioning, spiritual meditation, where you actually are connecting to something bigger, to your specific higher power, right? There can be spiritual meditation, there can be transcendental meditation, there can be mindfulness, where it's just essentially being present where you are with whatever comes up, whether that's thoughts or emotions or bodily sensations or pain or whatever it is. You just kind of being present with that and mindful, being conscious of that. There's things like metta meditation, which is what they call loving kindness meditation, where you're focusing on kind of producing a state of compassion towards others and towards yourself. Other forms of meditation can be something like visualization, where you specifically are trying to visualize something while you're meditating. And others can also be that you're focusing on something specific. Whereas others are more kind of, you're just being aware of whatever arises, whatever's there, versus focusing on something specific. So there are so many different types. And what you can think of is these are all just variations where people are using meditation as a tool for whatever they're wanting to do. It can be a tool for connecting with something bigger. It can be a tool for increasing your compassion. It can be a tool for improving your focus. It can be a tool for improving your discipline, right? You're just sitting still with whatever comes, you're practicing a certain form of discipline. So you're using it as a tool for whatever you need. And I kind of think of it as the same for all our sort of health tools, right? If you are doing a certain kind of physical activity, you're choosing, what do I want to achieve? And you're using physical activity as a tool to get there. So maybe you're doing it for relaxation, in which case it might look different to someone who's using it to improve their cardiovascular fitness. If you're using that physical activity for improving your strength, that'll look very different to someone who's trying to de-stress after a long day of work, right? It's always going to look different depending on what you're using it for. And you can think of meditation in the same way. So there's no like, this is how you must meditate, and this is right and this is wrong. It depends what you're using it for and what your particular purpose and belief and whatever it is around the meditation that you're doing. So usually there is some form of being present. And this is kind of the most similar to kind of mindfulness meditation. I find Zen Buddhist meditation to be similar to mindfulness meditation. So it's sort of just being, like I said, present with whatever is in that moment. So whether you're feeling happy or whether you're feeling terrible, whether you are uncomfortable physically or not comfortable physically, whether you wanted to meditate at that time or not, right? What going on in life, it's this practice of being present in this moment of your life, dropping into this time of your life, this moment, and being present with whatever arises. There's this openness and this non-judgmental aspect to it. So whatever you're thinking and you're feeling, you're not judging yourself for thinking that or judging yourself for feeling. Those are all things that are just arising. You're noticing them and letting them kind of fade away as they do. So that's often why there's this, you'll notice with most meditations, there's some aspect of getting in touch with sort of what you're feeling in your body. So getting in touch with bodily sensations, your breathing, right? That's a very easy way to kind of center inwards and to be present in this moment rather than getting lost in thought. So things like breathing, things like looking at your whole view, things like noticing what kind of sounds are arising. All of these things are just a way to center yourself, to be present, and to really notice what is actually going on in this particular moment of my life. So again, none of this you're judging, you're not pushing it away, you're not criticizing, you're just letting it come and go and just noticing it. Sam Harris, in his Waking Up app, that's the one that I used. And then obviously my dad, not obviously, but my dad is also a Zen teacher. So I have sort of his teaching from that aspect. And then I use Sam Harris's Waking Up app. I really think it's awesome. It's sort of, he describes meditation, or the purpose of it is being aware of what your brain is doing, like what your mind is actually like what is the nature of your mind. And we only really get to see that when we are kind of still and doing this kind of practice. And then you notice how, busy your brain is, or what your thoughts are doing, or all this kind of stuff. It's this kind of self-awareness. So Sam Harris, I think he says, I'm gonna like butcher the exact words, but essentially something to the extent of in meditation, you're not doing anything. There's no like purpose or like thing that you're actively trying to do. You're just stopping doing the thing that's distracting you from this moment, right? Which is getting lost in your thoughts. So you're just ceasing to do that thing that's distracting you. You're not actively doing anything, which is an interesting way to think about it. So I'm going to go into like using it as a tool for health and recovery, but just let me know before we move on to that if there's anything that you want to ask, or anything that you resonate with those, any particular form of meditation that you've tried before in the past, and whether or not you resonated with that, whether you found it helpful, what your experience is. Okay, cool. So before I go into the health and recovery aspects, I just wanted to touch on what I mentioned earlier about the career aspect. And it's partly what I was talking about earlier, this kind of like open and non-judgmental allowing of like whatever's arising. I found that really helpful because we often get so lost in our like brain stories, whether that's like unhappiness in your career, or you're making a decision, or you have this thought about work. When you get in the practice of meditating and being mindful and just observing how your brain works, you really start to notice how these thoughts just like come up all the time. Like there's always just so many thoughts, and you're not actively deciding to think them, they're arising. And then you're following that story along. And when you get this practice of almost just allowing thoughts to come up and realizing it's not necessarily the truth about that situation, right? Just because I'm thinking that I'm unhappy doesn't mean that that's the truth of my situation and that I have to change something, and that, you think some person at work is doesn't like you, whatever. That's not necessarily the truth of the situation. So it's almost like this practice of just observing your brain and noticing how your brain creates these like thoughts and stories and assumptions, and you just start to like create a bit more distance between you and your thoughts, and you don't necessarily just take on any thought that comes to your brain as the truth of the situation, or at least the whole truth of the situation, right? It's usually just some aspect of that. So I really found that helpful, not only with career, but anytime, also in relationship, but anytime I was sort of stuck in my stories, I really found meditation to be incredibly helpful with that. So that was just an interesting kind of note for me as well. Okay, and then using it as a tool for health and recovery. So even that, right, is so wide because health is so wide, right? So even when you're using it as a tool for health and recovery, that can look like so many different things, right? We have our cognitive or mental health, we have emotional, existential, relational. We have all these different aspects to our health. And in general, this kind of open, non-judgmental, being present, being aware of what's going on in your brain and body has been shown to be helpful for things like pain, for anxiety and depression. It has been shown to improve cognitive function, and has also been shown to change your brain and matter density in regions of the brain related to learning and memory, emotional regulation, and self-awareness. So those are just some of the health benefits in different areas that you can get just from the sort of the general practice of meditation. Hey, Chris. And then you can also tweak that meditation according to what you're trying to use it for, right? Like I said earlier, if you're using it for the purposes of calming, it would look different to if you're using it for the purpose of just observing what your brain is doing, which would look different to the purpose, to using it for the purpose of spiritual connection with a higher power, right? The purpose that you're using it for, the reason that you're using the meditation, you can kind of design it according to what you're trying to get out of it, or what you're trying to, what the purpose is for you. And you can make it your own. You can, like I said, you can be sitting with meditation, you can do walking meditation, you can do lying down meditation. And this is just an example of, depending on what you're using it for, it might look different, right? Like for some people, they're using it as a way to improve their discipline and to handle discomfort, in which case you would probably make sure that you're sitting in a certain position and you basically never move from that position. So you're training yourself to, even if you have discomfort, even if you start to get pain in certain areas, even if it starts to, you really start to want to move into a different position, that you're training that discipline and that tolerance of discomfort. Whereas for someone else, if that's not the purpose of your meditation, you might be very okay with changing position whenever you need it, or walking because you find that nicer than sitting, or whatever it is. So that's just an example of tweaking it according to what exactly you're using it for. And I wanted to end off with a short guided meditation. And before I do that, I'm just going to read a quote. It's actually from my dad. So like I mentioned, he's a Zen teacher. And he writes books as well. So in one of his books, this is how he described it. So he said, the word Zen means meditation. Meditation means to wake up. Waking up means to open your eyes, your ears, and your whole being. Then you can connect with the world that you live in. You can dance with it, weep with it, fight with it, and heal it. You can find refuge in it, or just walk tall with a heart as wide as the sky. I'll post that in the comments as well. But yeah, it just kind of goes back to this idea of you just connecting with your life in that moment, whatever that is, whatever it looks like, however you feel about it. And yeah, I guess the common word to use is being present, right? But that's what we mean when we say be present. It's just being with your life in that moment, whatever arises, being open and non-judgmental about whatever arises in that moment. Okay, so I'm just going to do a short meditation, just about 5 minutes, and it's just going to be essentially based on that kind of idea of mindfulness. One of the ideas that really helps if you're using it as a tool for a lot of different things, but in this case, a lot of people might be using it for a kind of stress relief. And one thing they've shown is if your vision widens, it has a stress relieving response. So when you are meditating, whether you are looking in front of you or you're closing your eyes, you can still do this. You still have a visual field, even if your eyes are closed, but you're just kind of connecting with a wider visual field. So you're not focusing on one specific thing. You're kind of just letting your vision widen as much as possible. Okay, so we're just going to start. You can have your eyes closed or open, whatever works for you. And just kind of, at first, just kind of get in touch with whatever you're feeling at this particular moment. So just kind of settling in to your posture. So we're going to do a little bit of a body scan. So just feeling your feet on the floor or whether they cross over each other, feeling your seat on your chair or on a cushion if you're meditating on a cushion. Just kind of scanning through your body, scanning through your torso, your shoulders, scanning through your arms, whatever they're touching your body or each other, and think of kind of lengthening through the top of your head. And then feel your body sensations as one thing. So almost like you're taking in all of that in one go. You're not focusing on one thing and then the next thing and the other. Just think of taking in everything that you're feeling, every body sensation as just one big picture. Everything's coming in at the same time. And then we're going to start focusing on the breathing. So you're not trying to change how you're breathing or breathe in a specific way. You're just trying to notice how you are already breathing. And see if you can follow that breath the whole way through. So following it from through the whole in-breath and the whole out-breath. And just keep going like that. Just bringing your awareness to the breath. And just notice any thoughts that come up. Letting them just come up and slowly go away again. Notice any emotional state that you're feeling. And again, you're just noticing it. You're not trying to make stories about it or judge yourself for it. Just notice it. And then noticing whether you hear anything, any sounds that come up, whether that's traffic or birds or silence. And making sure your visual field is staying as wide as you can, taking in your whole field of vision, peripheral vision, central vision. You're not trying to focus on anything specific. You're just taking in everything that's in your field of vision. You're taking that in. And you can do that with your eyes closed as well. Notice your field of vision even with your eyes closed. It's not quite dark. It's like a little bit of a shimmery thing. And we're just going to take 2 more deep breaths, noticing that breath, following it all the way through the inhale. And all the way through the exhale. Awesome. Almost probably should have been 5 minutes, but but it's just to give you a little sense of a very simple meditation. And each of those sections you can kind of extend. But every time you're just noticing something different. Sometimes you're noticing what thoughts are coming up. Sometimes you're noticing bodily sensations. Sometimes you're noticing emotional states. Sometimes you're just focusing on your breathing. Other times it's what sounds you hear or what you see in the visual field. But it's all just to practice that idea of I'm settling into this particular moment of my life and I'm being present with everything that comes up in there. And then from there, you can adjust, the time that you're doing it, depending on what you're doing it for, or you can adjust what you're thinking about or what you're focusing on, depending on what you're trying to do with it. So you can adjust it from that, but that's sort of the kind of core thing that you're doing, just being aware of whatever it is that's present in that moment. Awesome. I hope you found that helpful. And let me know if you need any more kind of resources on this. I can send you kind of guided meditations or different apps that you can use, and any kind of more detail on that you'd like. So let me know. and let me know what you found helpful or what resonated with you, and whether you'll be trying any of this going forward. If you need more support on that, this is obviously just a part of our health and recovery, and like I said, it can even be part of the career journey. So it's just kind of a part of what we can do in terms of health and recovery, but it can be a really helpful tool. So yes, have a wonderful Friday, and I'll see you soon.